Hey guys, well, it is here. We finally made it. I know we had to reschedule, but thank you guys so much to my esteemed panelists, but also thank you all the listeners for being patient with us. You know, life throws us curveballs, but I'm super excited to be here. I'm super excited for this conversation. And before we get into it, let me introduce all of my guests who have their own platforms. I have with me today Ms. Mahogany Bing of Mahogany Speaks. I have Shira Renee from Blemish Beauty Podcast, and I have my brother Shahi Henderson from Relationship Stuff 101 and from the Purple Pill Perspective. And of course, I am here, Langley, Casual Word Shazer, host of Casual Word and Casual Word Radio. Thrilled to be here. Guys, thank you so much for taking the time out to be here.
All right. Thanks a lot for having me here.
Yeah, it is certainly an honor and a privilege. I think this is a remarkable panel. I think you guys are going to really enjoy this conversation. And with that, let me give you guys some context. Some videos have gone around. Some of them are skits, but some of them seem to be rather serious about the differences between men and women's perspective of their professions. And specifically, what we're talking about is how some of the videos depict women not being interested in a man who's working behind a cash register, working at perhaps not a minimum wage job, but something above minimum wage. But maybe he's not C-suite. Maybe he's not an executive. Maybe he's not white collar. And we're seeing more and more how this concept of going after the bag and this, what have you done for me? What do you bring to the table? And you guys know I've talked about that extensively, about the table and how that's perverted some of our perspectives. And it seems that this is turning people away from individuals who are maybe not at a very high income level. You're six-figure people, maybe they're high five figures. Maybe you're making 75 or 80,000, but because it's not 150,000, there's people who are writing you off, right? And that's what this conversation is about. And I wanted to bring all the perspectives because we have different ages, different experiences, and of course, we have a different take on life in general. So again, guys, thank you so much for being here. And let's jump right into the conversation. So ladies first, the video we put in our little chat beforehand, you see the young lady who's like, I'm not interested. The guy's working behind the cash register and he's trying to get her number. She's like, oh, I'm not interested. And they go into this whole diatribe about who, he has a job, she doesn't have a job. And, even though his job's not great, he's still working. And it's interesting to see the dynamic between the two. So let me get your all's perspective on this culture and this particular atmosphere where some people, and we won't make this about gender, we'll just say people in general, right? That some people seem to not have interest in people who are working that honest job.
I'll hop in. So thank you, Langley, for having me. I would say that my perspective is a little different. For me, my opinion is any legal job is an honorable job and it should be respected. And so I've not heard of this trend that people who have 9-to-5s are unattractive. I've not lived my life that way. I think for me, especially being at the age that I am at, it's more important for me when I'm looking for a mate that they have a retirement plan, that there's stability, and that they can take care of themselves and they're not necessarily looking for me to take care of them. I'm not necessarily looking for someone with potential. I'm looking for someone who is already potenched, if that makes sense.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? So whatever you're doing to do that, it's honorable. I do think that there is this stigma of a 9-to-5 equating to low income, and that's not necessarily true. You use these numbers of someone making $75,000 to $80,000 or 150 or 500,000. At any one of those income levels, you can live outside of your means and be broke.
100%.
Right. And so it's all about being responsible and taking care of your business. And that's kind of what I'm attracted to.
Thank you. Sheila?
I agree with Mahogany because, nowadays everything is so particular. Back in the day, in the 90s, it was like, okay, well, you don't have a job, you're a scrub, you're this, you're that. Now you have a job, it's the type of job that you have. Now you got a 9-to-5, or like you said, Mahogany, you can have six figures, but if you don't know how to manage your money, you're still going to be living paycheck to paycheck. So what is the difference? And usually nowadays the people that have those stipulations on the type of job and things like that, they really don't.
I'm sorry. So you're
Right.
about, okay, yeah, we lost you for just a second there. I don't know what happened.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Keep going.
Okay. So I was saying I like the fact that the guy turned it around on her, because nowadays, like, the people who have those stipulations, they don't usually have stuff going for themselves either. So with that being said, it's like, yeah, he has this job and you're at his job shopping. So why are you downplaying him when he's trying to make an honest living? And like you said, Mahogany, with those jobs, you have to have two, three, or sometimes even a side hustle too, just to make ends meet. So instead of respecting the fact that, hey, he's making an honest living, he's not out here, selling things or doing anything illegal, we can always build upon something that has a foundation, but you can't build upon anything. So I think we need to change the narrative with that and just start looking at the greater picture. When people do have something to come to the table with, we can always add to it, just like, with food, and people have potlucks. If I bring something and you bring something, then we can create a meal. You know what I mean? As opposed to you expecting somebody to just bring everything and you just pull up to the table. That's not how you do things.
Man. All right. Jai, jump in, man.
Once again, thank everybody for being here, and Langley, thank you for coming up with this conversation. When you first sent me the video, I automatically went back to a conversation that I mentioned to you that I had with somebody back in like 2002 when I was doing security. And I tried to have a conversation with her, and she was like, "Oh, you're a security guard, you corny." And where I come from, the hood, Jersey City, New Jersey, a lot of women there more look like a guy who's selling drugs, or the guy who's on the corner, or the guy who's the hustler, as the person who's more interested in the guy that's actually working a 9 to 5. So when she told me that I was corny just for doing security, I looked at it like, how does having a job make you corny, and out there damn near about to get killed every night, makes it entertaining? What that starts to help you think about, as I learned and talked about relationships as long as I have, you start to understand that a traumatic person loves to connect themselves to trauma. So if the person is dealing with trauma, they don't see something that's non-traumatic as something that's interesting. They want to relate to the trauma. So they connect more with trauma than they do with nothing that's inside of trauma. I mentioned this to somebody before. I said, you can't present roses to somebody that's used to smelling poop, because if they're used to smelling poop, the roses are going to smell bad to them.
Mm-hmm.
So if you present roses to them in life, they sneering their mouth up to it like, yeah, I don't want that. Or that's not something that I want per se. I don't want you doing that. I want you to be doing something that I'm comfortable with. And I believe that every person, every man, every woman on this planet is entitled to their version of love and what they feel love is, and their version of connecting with another human being, regardless of their work status. You understand what I'm saying? So when we look at people and connecting with people, we want to connect with the person, not the wallet. But I understand the asset logic. You understand? Does he provide a cave for me? Does he provide a house for me to feel comfortable inside of when there's a storm? I get that. So when you look at, can he provide these extra assets for me when the storm comes? I don't want to be with somebody who can't provide the asset. When I did the research, that's more likely what it was looked into, that women would more go for the guy with the assets. Allow me to take it to the cave day prospect on that. The woman wouldn't allow the man to knock her upside the head and drag her back to the field if he didn't have a cave. She wanted him to drive her back to the cave because you actually have a place of comfort, a place where I can have my babies, and a place where if there was a bear or snake or anything that was coming, there's a place of protection. So I can't go back to a field. I'd rather go back to a cave. And I get that. But in relationship building, when you look at relationship building, the person needs a plan of action. So if he came with a plan to build a cave and actually showed you the architecture for building the cave, that still should require him to be able to be in your life because he has a plan and he has action behind the plan. Because just talking doesn't mean anything. But let you go.
Yeah, I was just gonna say. I mean, you guys are bringing up great points, and I think that it's important to differentiate, right? When you are talking to the person, it's the individual, and I know it may sound cliche, right? It's not what's on the cover. We talk quite a bit about that, and it's the contents because you brought up the fact that if a person makes six figures but they're irresponsible, and we see often how those guys in high power jobs and women in high power jobs lack something emotionally because it takes a certain level of apathy and disconnect to be able to climb the ladder in a lot of cases. So there are certain some things lacking that you don't see till later on. And I'm sure we've all seen all of those conversations and some of the studies that talk about those people in high power jobs and how they are always chasing after something. So we see a lot of infidelity, a lot of other things happening that are associated with some of those people in some of those positions. And so the question that I have now for the group is, how do you think that we've gotten to a place where the assets, as you mentioned, are more important than the individual? Where did that come from? I know you mentioned Scrubs, right? And I see a comment about that being early 2000s. And, I know that there was a big push on, right? If you live at home with your mom, if you are riding with your friend, but, you don't even give a person an opportunity to discuss how they ended up in that position. You don't know what has transpired in their lives. And to your point, maybe there is a plan and they're working on that plan. Maybe the person who's working at that cash register, is building something and this is a second job. You wouldn't know that, right? This might be the extra hustle, Shira, like you were talking about. Maybe this is the part-time gig. This isn't the full-time gig, but you are only seeing this surface level. So how do you think, and this is just us having our own conversation here, ladies and gentlemen, everybody who's watching, what from what you all have seen and just what we've talked about briefly, what do you think has transpired that has shifted us away from even acknowledging the humanness of people over their assets and their perceived value? And we'll go back around to the ladies first, of course. Shira, we'll start with you.
I want to say TV, what they see. A lot, and then too what they read. I'm from Jersey City too, so back in the day back in the day we used to read those hood books, and those hood books had the guy who sold the drugs, and he had all the money, and they lived this fancy life and all of that. But then what comes with it? Money is nice to have. Of course, you can pay your bills, but if you're not happy, what good is having the money? And then, you could be with someone who is just making it like a 9 to 5, and then you can have a great life and still be happy. And a lot of people feel like money equals happiness, and that's not the case. You can use all the money in the world to pay all your bills and to get out of debt and do that. But there are a lot of millionaires, there are a lot of celebrities who are out here and they're unaliving themselves because they're still unhappy. They have the ability to get any and everything that they want, but they don't have peace in their home. They don't have peace within themselves because, like, Shai said to his point, they're not happy within themselves and they're dealing with trauma. I was watching a television show called Married at First Sight. And this show in particular, these two strangers, they meet at the altar. And they have to commit to this marriage for 10 weeks. I think it's about 10 weeks or so. And this one lady, she was matched with this guy who was living with his parents, like you said, Langley, to your point. And she disconnected immediately once she found out that he was living with his parents. And he had to tell her, like, it's not that I am living with my parents because I have to. I'm living with my parents because I want to. But she was already disconnected and she just couldn't see it. And when they brought the specialists in, like the professionals, the psychologists and stuff, she said, it's a traumatic experience for me because I grew up poor. So when I see a man who is not put together and I've worked hard to get where I need to be, I automatically disconnect myself emotionally because I feel like if he's not in that space already, then there's a possibility that he will bring me down and we'll go back to what I'm accustomed to. So it could be the trauma, like you said. So that's what I got for that.
Terrific.
I agree with everything that Shira said. I do want to get back to the point of TV. I think that sometimes we romanticize and fantasize reality TV. It's in our face. It's more common to watch those types of programs versus the sitcoms and the regular nightly programs. But I would also say that I'm not. I guess I would assume, and I tried to do some research on it, that the number of women who have this mindset is a small percentage. That's my assumption. That is just my assumption. For me, I am more attracted, at least on the front end, with your intellect. Can we have a conversation? I'm not asking you what you do, where you live, and all of that. I want to have a conversation with you. And I'm attracted to smart minds. And the people that I'm around or I associate myself with are similar in that regard. I do think that as relationships progress and progress slowly, I do think that you start having those conversations, and you start having those conversations around plans and future outcomes and things of that nature. And regardless of where they are, if your values aren't aligned, then that's where the disconnect can happen. Because where you are is where you are, but your values and your goals could be so much further than where you are today. And if you have a plan to get there, I can rock with that.
Mm-hmm. Go ahead, Shad.
Oh, okay. I believe I'm gonna go a little bit away from the television narrative to social media. Social media is our new giant. You understand? Social media is Godzilla. TV is King Kong. And if you know, Godzilla's bigger than King Kong. And Godzilla is ripping through relationships, taking his nuclear energy and tearing relationships apart. R.I.P. Kevin Samuels created a path or a drive for a lot of detractors on the internet to now start this conversation around relationships, now pointing a finger at women for the way that they are, and then forgetting the way that men are. I said this in a panel I was on a conversation with some months ago. What has happened now is the men has turned into Uncle Sam. You know that picture where Uncle Sam is pointing the finger out at women. And then 90 years ago, that's what women were doing. When we're trying to create a conversation around relationships, there can be no finger pointing or no finger wagging or no na, or calling people 304s and things of that nature, shooting down their persona, because at the end of the day, none of us are perfect. I don't want to get a little bit of religious on you, but the Bible says that no man is more perfect than God. And Langley can quote me on that. No man. Somebody asked, a 304, as far as I understood, a 304 is like a streetwalker, a prostitute, as you would know. So you have guys who are calling regular women prostitutes. Back in the day, we called them chicken heads. That's what I told somebody. Yeah. Or you call them thoughts now. That whatever they're given, names that they're given. But there is more comfortability in the insult, and there is less knowledge in the collective action to actually cause some type of movement in relationships. I hate to speak on the act or on the motions of a man who's no longer around to defend himself when I say R.I.P. to Kevin Samuels, but he has a lot of detractors that's on the internet spreading this poison, which I don't like. The person that's been talking about relationships for daggone near 30 years, my passion is relationships. I don't target women. I don't target men. I target the situations that men and women just so happen to be in. That is a relationship. That's what I target. So if you're having trouble with him lying and he having trouble with your miscommunication, I'm going to target the lies and the disconnect in the communication you guys are having. That's what I'm targeting. So the communication is a strong break in the communication. And social media is presenting us with more picking fights than more solutions to the poison. You understand? So as long as...
Go ahead. I'm sorry. No, I was just going to say it's interesting that you bring that up, because on the larger scale, all right, we can go up a little bit further, and we recognize the virility of the negative influences, right? I mean, the algorithm picks up on that, and that's it's putting it back in your face and back in your face.
Exactly.
I'm sorry, I did not cut you off. Please continue.
It's all good. You make it a great point. If you jump into the rabbit hole, the algorithm will gladly take you further and further down into the hole. And now you find yourself in hell, and now you think relationships are hell. Because you jumped into the rabbit hole, and the deeper you go, the mindset starts to make you believe that relationships are actually hell, and men today ain't worth it, and women today ain't worth it and worth going through the hell. No, in all actuality, as mentioned, everybody's not like that. Everybody's not like what you are being presented to on the internet. You're just finding people who are making money off making you angry. And as long as they can trigger a response from you, a like and a comment that'll get thousands and thousands of responses, you're going to consistently get information that makes you think that relationships are terrible. That's what made that guy create that parody about a woman coming to him on his regular job saying he's nothing. Then he insulted her, which got him a lot of likes because men feel, get her, tell her about herself. No, don't tell her about herself, because both of y'all actually may be with in all actuality, because logically and psychologically, either one of y'all may not be at a level or a heightened level of psychology, which makes either one of y'all best for a relationship. When it comes to the mindset, as mentioned prior, that's the more thing that you need to stick into. How can this person grow with me mentally? Because at the end of the day, I don't know if everybody ever seen the movie American Psycho. This dude met a woman in the bar, took her home, literally and figuratively ate one of the women and dropped the chainsaw on the other one. And he looked like a high-value man at the end of the day. Looks are deceiving.
Absolutely.
Looks are deceiving.
Please jump right into the conversation, and I'll bring in my 2 cents here in a moment. But I want to hear what you all are thinking.
I mean, I definitely agree with everything that was just said. I do believe that looks are deceiving, and that's why we need to meet each other's minds and try to push past that representative that we talk so much about to find out what people's true intentions are. And that's man versus women and women versus men. It's so important for us to not just to look at the outward appearance or what we think things are, and go deeper. Have conversations with people before you take that next step and jump into I'm so in love. Because what is being presented to us is a representative. And it may be years before you get to know that true person, because that representative can last a long time. How are you going to act if we were to move in and a hammer drops on your foot? Right. What's your reaction going to be? You're seeing me at my best, right? I want to see you at your worst. When we are when we have a disagreement, what's your reaction towards me? What will that be? So I agree with everything that you just said.
Shira, please jump in.
While you were talking, I was thinking about the Tyler Perry movies and how they always have, when you said high value man, I always thought about the Tyler Perry movies and how the men who had those distinguishing jobs and he's dressed nice and he talked very well. Diary of a Mad Black Woman in particular. She said something about he's so into appearances, and on the outside, everybody thinks that they are this perfect couple and they were so happy, and then behind closed doors he's beating on her, he's treating her like trash, he's doing all the things, and then she ends up meeting this man who has this 9 to 5 and immediately she turns her nose like, how can you afford this place? Just because I work 9 to 5 doesn't mean I don't know how to save my money, or, I don't prioritize things enough to say, okay, well, this is for this, and then I'll do this when I have the time, or someone who is worth spending this money for. And then as time went on, she changed her narrative on how she saw people. So I definitely do agree that, we have to take our time, to Mahogany's point, and get to know people, because we really, will be surprised who we end up with. And a lot of the times too, they also say that the person that you're with is usually in the friend zone, because we done friend zone them because they have that typical 9 to 5, or they're not that perfect person that we have on our list, right? So that's a whole nother conversation. We have to throw that list away, because a lot of the times we have these lists and we're not even the person that that person on that list is looking for. So
Mhm.
we have to do more self-reflection in who we are. And then once we figure out who we are and where we want to be, then we'll be able to attract who's for us, and all the people that needs to be around us.
Yeah, those are outstanding points because it makes me think about projecting. You guys mentioned the fact that a lot of times the people who have these very complex lists and they have all these prerequisites don't even meet those same standards. And I find that always to be fascinating. Like, you want all these things and you don't even have them yourself. And you talked about the introspection and doing the reflection and understanding that there are some things that have to be done on the inside, because as you all have heard me talk about, relative to the table conversation, is that you also have to create a table that someone wants to sit at. And so one of the things that we don't do very well, back to Shahid's point about pointing fingers and doing the wagging, is okay, I have perhaps discovered the individual that meets some of these requirements. They've checked off some boxes. However, to Shiva's point, that person may not be interested in me, not because I don't have value, but because I don't present myself with the kind of things that this person is looking for. So not only does that mean that you've got to, yes, have those conversations and understand those things, but also you have to make sure that you are presenting yourself as a viable option, right, within the scope of the kind of individuals that you would like to be with, right? I mean, let's be honest about that. If you want an intellectual, and intellectuals go to museums and they go to fine arts, and you go to the club, that's a high probability you're going to have a hard time meeting that person there. And if you do meet that person comes with some other things that you may not want to have to deal with. And so we have to be realistic about how we operate and our expectations, and making sure that all those things line up. We talk about alignment with the way that we want to see our lives go. And the other thing that really strikes me with this conversation is the way that we have romanticized the highlights. You guys have all talked about that, right? With social media, with television, everything that you see is a representation. Even if there's truth behind it, you only see certain aspects of people's lives. You only see, and it's interesting because we talk about the people who are giving relationship advice. And I'm going to throw the curveball, because one of the things that I was just thinking about was, what if the person who's causing the chaos, what if the person who's on social media dogging both genders and making you upset, right, to get those clicks and those likes, has a beautiful marriage, has a wonderful home life, everything is fine, and they get on social media and create dissension? This is why it's important for people to monitor, themselves and what they're looking at, because this person gets on and they're saying, oh yeah, you got to do X, Y, and Z, and you don't have to listen to this, and you don't have to da 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 da. Meanwhile, they're at home either doing those exact same things, or their life has no correlation to the information that they're giving you all. So we want to put that out there, guys, because again, this is just our opinions. We just want to have this conversation, but I think it's important to recognize that there are people who are purposely in the world who are simply trying to create calamity. They're simply trying to create issues and create problems for other people because they don't have to deal with it, right? It's like, don't push the red button. I'm gonna push the red button, and guess what? The world blows up. I'm good. I'm in my bunker, right? I'm over here in my shelter. It's fine. I don't care what else happens. So you got people who are out here pushing the red button, and you all, we've all been there to some degree at some point, are believing all this, taking it as the gospel, without doing your homework, without doing your research, without doing your introspection, without making any kind of adjustments, without pivoting. So I want to encourage everybody who's watching this and who will watch this later, as we're having this conversation and we're talking about multiple aspects of this psychosis, of, you know, not being interested in someone who has a regular life and lifestyle, to make sure that you're doing a lot of the other work associated with that. And then the other part that I want to pitch to you guys is, we often forget that that person who gets up every day and goes to work, whatever that work looks like. Maybe it's not the C-suite person, but it's the person who's driving the moving truck. It's the person who's going to work at that cash register or whatever. We often forget what that actually represents is someone who's disciplined, someone who's responsible, someone who has initiative, right? And someone who is consistent. Those are the things that we miss. So I want to pitch that out to you guys, and we can talk about that part, because I think that's something that we should definitely shine a light on, is the importance of what we're missing with those individuals. And again, of course, we're going to start with the ladies. Shad, no disrespect, man, but I definitely want to hear from them. So Mahogany, please let us know what you think about all that.
It's an interesting point, because I was going to piggyback or veggie. I say veggie back as a vegetarian, whatever, off of Shira. When we talk about, we haven't really said entrepreneurship. I don't know if this conversation is 9 to 5 versus entrepreneurship, or 9 to 5 versus something illegal. I'm not sure. I was thinking 9 to 5 versus entrepreneurship. And when I think about entrepreneurship, it is honorable and it's respected. But it came from the conversation around the Madea movies, the Tyler Perry movies, because these high value men oftentimes were entrepreneurs, right? Coming home stressed. What goes into being an entrepreneur? Well, you may not get a consistent paycheck. You may not know what your day is going to be. So all of that, it creates hardship on families. I know with 9 to 5s, you know who you're going to be around. You know what you're going to do. Your paycheck is guaranteed. So there could be a level of stress. Oftentimes it's, man, I wish I could have another job or get another job, but you don't have the stress of, or the worry of where my paycheck is coming from, or if I'm going to have money this week, like an entrepreneur. So I do honor entrepreneurs, because they do jump out and take that risk, knowing that that's what they're faced with. And I think that when people would prefer dating entrepreneurs, they have to understand what that means. They have to understand that you may not be able to go out to dinner tonight, because the check may not be coming tonight like it had planned. Like your customers may not pay you, right? So I wanted to throw that out there as well. I forgot your question though.
Oh, we were talking about, well, I mean, it goes right along with that, with what you said, because we're talking about the fact that we miss some really good attributes about the individuals that are getting up every day and going to the grind.
Absolutely. One of the main things is guaranteed retirement. And again, as we talked about this prior to jumping on the show, at this big age that I am in, I'll be 48 this year. I'm looking forward to retirement in 4.5 years. And I've been a public servant my entire career, 28 years in. And I don't want to really have a mate that doesn't have a retirement plan. That's like, it's not necessarily a non-negotiable, and it's certainly not a question I'm going to ask up front, but I want to be able to travel the world with my companion. And I want someone who has that, whether it's from McDonald's, whether it's from the city, them taking trash, it's all honorable. Get you a retirement plan, because when the years come and they build up, I want you to be able to retire and to be able to live a comfortable life, whatever your career was. And so one of the benefits of having that 9 to 5 is having the ability to save and build that retirement plan. And that's a big deal for me.
Yeah, 100%. I agree. Sheila?
I think to both of your points, it's all about asking the right questions. And, nowadays, back in the day when you were dating, you were asking the questions, what kind of job do you have? What's your favorite color? This, and this. But then when you get a certain level of maturity, you start fine tuning the questions that you're asking. And like you said, Mahogany, you focus more on the things that will come up later. You're focusing on not so much of how much money he's making or how does he look. What's the character of this person? Is this person, does he have integrity? You know, does he treat the waiter with the same respect as he would treat the owner of the restaurant? Like you said, Mahogany, about the retirement plan, is he a good steward over his money? Does he prioritize saving? Does he tithe? These are the things, you know, that we have to start asking people that we come into relationships with, because those should be your values now. Once you get to a certain big old age, you know, whatever that age may be for, you know, us, because I'm 38 and I feel like that. Like, I'm focused on, you know, finding a job where it could be a career so I can retire, you know, as opposed to just working and then you quit your job or whatever. Because when you build a family, you want to have that type of security, you know, and that's another thing that we have to focus on too, having that security, because you can work a 9 to 5. And like you said, Langley, you can have discipline. You're dependable, you're reliable. You have longevity with the job because you've been to your job for like 10 years or 15 years. So that says a lot about who you are in regards to dedication. You know, you show up, you're accountable. These are the things that we have to start focusing on and just prioritizing, asking the right questions.
Absolutely. I cannot agree more with both of you. Shai, please jump in on that.
Going with the, you know, the current narrative that we're having. I know a lot of people, what they look at is that, you know, like the man, there's a conversation, of course, again, these conversations that generate across the internet always tickle me, about the man being the head of the household and how the woman should be in the kitchen doing what she has to do because that's where she belongs. In the relationship, both people are leaders. And I said this, and a lot of people tried to attack me on it because, you know, a lot of men want to say, no, we're the leaders. You know, I am man, you know, whatever. The man and the woman are leaders in a relationship together. You can ask a man, can you cook lasagna? No, I can't cook lasagna. Well, she's the leader in the kitchen. You're not. So when it comes to cooking, cleaning, and taking care of what she has to take care of, she's the leader. So you have to be okay with her leadership, and she has to be okay with your leadership. There is, and if you look at it, when I did some research writing my book, and I looked into the submissiveness conversation, in all actuality, there is no submission in the relationship. There's just a level of respect. Mm-hmm. So if someone is talking to someone about something and you have input, like we're doing right now, you don't jump and give your opinion while that person has already given an opinion. You're submitting to that person's knowledge that they're driving on a point right now. Then you give your point after that person is done. When you hear a lot of non-thinkers or people who hype up these conversations, having a conversation that makes you believe that every man thinks this way. God bless the people who generalize things. You understand? So a lot of people generalize things. I tend not to. I would use some women or some men or many times people, letting people know that there is an inclusive conversation here. We all sometimes have issues, or we all can fall into a moment of depression, or we all can have a problem that sets us back. So when you look at leadership in a relationship, and you look at the man that's driving the relationship, in all actuality, if he has an inability to drive, he's not going to do nothing but crash and wreck the whole relationship anyway. You understand? So people are in the front seat together, and the wife is on the passenger side, the husband is in the driver's side. How many times have y'all known before GPS, the wife was actually the one telling the man where to go? Hey, you lost, you idiot. You don't know where to go. So she had more direction than him. So without her, he would be lost. You understand? And if y'all understand what I just did there, you need a partner. And she needs her role to match yours. Your role needs to match hers. And in that matching of roles, you understand, you need to know that that person has, again, the ability to drive home a relationship. Because if they don't, they're not going to do nothing but put both of you in the hole. A lot of men would ask a woman, What do you bring to the table when he actually even know how to build a table yet? So you're asking her to bring something to a table you don't even know how to build. So a lot of men probably don't even know how to change out a light fixture, not a light bulb. Can you change a light fixture? You understand? So when you look at being a leader, you may not have the ability to even lead, but you pump up the conversation that you are a leader. So again, going back to this may have strayed away from the point that we're trying to make, but if you actually look at how I'm about to bring this home, we are all leaders in our own way, and we have to be respectable of how people lead in their own way. There's a book that talks about people's love languages. We need to start focusing on people's leadership language. How do you lead? And how is your ability to lead us? Is it you sitting at dinner with a guy, you look across the table at him. How do you do as a leader? And he may be like, no, men lead. No. How do you do as a leader? If I allowed you to lead us into the forest, can you even find the lake? Do you have an ability to track down a deer? Do you know how to pick up the grass and look at the minerals to tell if the deer even came in this direction? Can you do that? Oh, no, I can't do that. Well, you have an inability to lead us to the lake then. But you know what? I don't have ability to lead us to the lake. But together, we can find the lake together. And we can get there and we can drink together. When we get there together, we can enjoy the fact that we've gotten here because of each other. And not because of you. And not because of me. Because of us.
And that's beautiful, because that's what this entire conversation is about, is understanding that we have to be able to work together, and it takes work individually to begin to work as a collective. And I think that's one of the things that we have to drive home, because that's some of the things that I think a lot of people miss, is you've got to do that work individually. You talked about building that table. I love the table conversation, and correct. You want to bring someone, and we all have that. What do you bring to the table? What do you bring to the table? Well, I can't bring anything to a table that doesn't exist.
Right.
And I can't bring anything to a table that's dirty. You still got some stuff you got to clean up. And the thing that I also want to bring to everybody's attention that we often talk about when we have this submissive conversation is that we have blurred the line between submission and subservience. There's two different things. And so for so long, men especially, because to your point, Shai, this whole I'm the leader, I am man, hear me roar conversation is like, okay, however, the submission is that respect for your ability to lead if you have it. And men have often thought that they should have, right, indentured servants, for lack of a better way to put that, right? Women are supposed to be that whole in the kitchen, barefoot pregnant thing is like, it's supposed to be, subservient. And that's not the case. It's mutual. Right. It's everybody has their area of expertise. Everybody has the things that they're good at. For example, I know people who, the man is a great leader when it comes to the labor portion, to your point, right? So he can build things, he can fix things, he can do all stuff around the house, but he's terrible with finances. His wife, however, right, is brilliant, manages all the financial aspects, and they work together, and it works. And you have to find that thing that works. I talk about this often, and it is one of the most profound things I've ever heard in my life. Was at a leadership conference, and the gentleman came out, and the first thing he said was, if two people are just alike, one person is not necessary. And I bring that up because we are oftentimes looking for ourselves and someone else instead of looking for someone who complements us. And especially if you need to do some work, you're going to connect with that traumatic person, right? That person that you're looking for, that same person, as opposed to looking at someone who can help you build, help you grow, and nourish you as you nourish them, right? You both pour into each other and pour into a cup that leads you both into a direction of righteousness and success. So I love this conversation. We are out of time, unfortunately. This has been rich and wonderful. And thank you guys so much again for being here. I hope that everybody who's listening was able to get a moment to learn some things, to glean some things, and more importantly, away from the conversation, follow these individuals because, as you can see and hear, they are brilliant, they are insightful, they are experienced, they have great words and great wisdom. And I'm going to give them a minute to go ahead and just tell everybody where they can find you. We'll start with Shira. Let everybody know where they can find you.
Okay, so you guys, I am the host of the Blemish Beauty Podcast, and you can find me on Apple Podcasts. You can find me on Facebook and on YouTube every Tuesday and Thursday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.
Thank you so much. Mahogany?
Hey, I am your girl Mahogany, the host of Mahogany Speaks. You can find me on Spotify, on Facebook, and on Instagram. And Langley, thank you so much for having me. And I wasn't done, so we got to do a part 2.
Hey, I'm here for it. We're gonna keep it going. There's so many things that we need to unpack. This is probably going to turn into a regular thing. So everybody be on the lookout for that in the very near future. Shai, go ahead, man.
Yes. Relationship Stuff 101. You can find it on Instagram as Rship 101. TikTok, same thing. Facebook as Relationship Stuff 101. The podcast, wherever you get your podcast, is Relationship Stuff 101. I've actually changed and went away from the purple pill perspective narrative and brought it back to Relationship Stuff 101. So that's also on YouTube. And again, wherever you can, wherever you have your social media, Relationship Stuff 101 or Rship 101 is where you can find me. Yep.
Thanks, guys, again. And of course, this is your boy Langley, host of Casual Word Radio. And guys, you can find me on all the platforms that have podcasts. Of course, I'm also on YouTube. You can also find some of these episodes, not this one, but some other episodes will be on the Sheen TV app, as well as on the Roku, on King Network TV. Those are there as well. So again, guys, make sure that you follow these individuals, check out their content, check out their guests. I love watching them interview and people that they have to come on and the stories that are shared. It is simply rich and it is insightful and it is a wonderful time. You won't regret a single podcast episode from any of these individuals when you get a chance to sit down and watch them. So guys, listen, thank you so much again. Thank you to my esteemed guests and fellow podcast hosts for being here, taking time out of your day. Listen, guys, this is live. You can go back and watch this anytime once we come off live. But you guys know we got to keep on keeping on, keep on putting up the good fight, and keep on spreading these good words because somewhere someone is being inspired. So as always, guys, let's change the way that we think so we change the way that we live. And until next time, stay blessed.
All right. Have a good one.